What's going on today, Maureen? I thought I had a fly on my leg when I first pressed play. Oops. So I wanted to do the third part of my series of when you're just starting out growing your own garden and talk about the way that I plant to take advantage of as much space as possible. And if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, I'm going to link it in the description down below so you can catch yourself up to those. Now, a no-brainer for me is my potatoes and my garlic. This is my potato bed, and I plant that up in March. It's going to be harvested probably by July. Then, if we look at the garlic, it's also coming out in July. And I have 3 beds. This bed here, I only had a few garlic and it really didn't take. And then there's one farther down the way. And now I'm going to be taking out all that garlic, and the other 2 beds I'm going to be turning into potatoes. The big potato patch that was planted in March, that when it comes out, I am going to do a second planting of potatoes. Now, these ones will come in late and it'll be October, November. Because my climate allows me to get a second planting of potatoes, they won't be really, really big, but it is where I'm actually utilizing the space once more. So if you have some other plants that after the potatoes are gone, you could do a second cropping of something else, something that's easy to grow, like say your lettuces or some radishes, something that's like that only needs a couple of months to grow. One thing that I do, I plant bush bean or beans everywhere in every single garden, because in the bush, it isn't going to take up a lot of space. And the great thing about beans is that they are nitrogen fixers. They're going to be adding in nitrogen into your soils. You're actually feeding your soil good nutrients for the year and also for the coming years. This bed I call garden bed number 2, and all along the edge are my pickling cukes. So they go up there. And if you look at the bottom, right below my pickling cukes are beans. So those bush beans, as they bush out, they're going to be making coverage that is actually going to also help keep the moisture in, also putting nitrogen into the soil. In this bed as well, I've got my corn, and then I've just got turnips, radishes, and carrots. As these grow, I will be able to put in something actually in between the rows once these get established. This is what we call garden bed number 3. So again, I have a bean growing all the way up there. There's actually 2 beans, a couple of zucchinis, and then I've got my rows of cabbages, and of course, bush beans right here. Along the other side of this trellis, I have cucumbers. So this bed has got a lot of food, as well as the carrots. What is garden bed number 1? I put my broccoli out front. I also have a butternut squash that I'll be able to trail around to be protecting the roots. In the back, I have more beans. So I have pole beans there, but I also have bush beans out front here as well. So again, I'm feeding the soil nitrogen and maximizing the space. My 3-tiered garden, this is the one that I spend the most time in making sure that I'm optimizing the space really, really well. It gets full coverage of sun, and in here I have tomatoes growing, Swiss chard, okra, radishes, romaine lettuce, and of course, you guessed it, beans. I have a row of tomatoes that I couldn't give away, and so they went into pots. Why yes, I planted too many tomatoes. But I'm using these tomatoes in front of the very first tier to actually protect the Swiss chard that is in behind. We'll move in a little closer in a second. I have my Romas here, which are determinate. So they are protecting the lettuces. And then I have all of my indeterminates here, which are up on roller hooks. So if we move in closer, you will see my row of lettuces there. And of course a bean, and the basil, of course, because that is a really good companion plant. I have more beans here that can just hang off the side. Here's another perspective so that you can see. We've got that romaine lettuce that is sandwiched in between the determinate and the indeterminate tomatoes. Of course, these ones here, they're not protected, so those are the ones that we're going to eat off of first. I've put pots of nasturtiums and of course marigolds here in the corner, and they'll be right next to the garden bed. These don't guarantee that pests won't come, help to draw some of the other bugs, or even bring in predator bugs that will attack the bugs that are eating your good plants. This was my pepper bed, but I just pulled all the pepper plants out and I put them over here into garden bed number 1. But I do have to show you, there's lots growing in here. Some of my composted soil that came from the tower was full of tomato plants and squash plants. So I might let some of them grow, but right now, like even if you look at this one here, that is a clump of tomato plants. Oh my gosh. Whew. So from the back side of garden bed number 1, where we have the broccoli, I put all of the peppers here. Now, peppers like heat, but they don't like a lot of sun. So basically what I've created here is I have my broccoli that is here that is actually going to help make some shade for the evening sun. What was in this bed previously was all my bok choy that I picked. And so here is basically a second planting after the bok choy, is I've moved the peppers into this bed. So again, they're going to get some hot sun, but they're also going to be protected by the broccoli. So you really need to pay attention to where your sun is going to be and the heights of different plants so that you can utilize one plant's shade to protect another. Then in this bed here, this is my strawberry and asparagus. Now you can see the asparagus, it's finishing up its time, but I went and used the back here and I've planted 2 loofahs, and you can see we've got a loofah growing right there. Now I also planted in a whole bunch of bush beans just to utilize the space because the strawberries are on the front, so I'll have lots of bush beans. You're probably thinking, that's a lot of bush beans, but I want a lot of bush beans so that we can eat them through the summer, and then the rest I can be canning up for us to eat through the winter. Mama's thinking. And so to recap, take the time to know what is the growing span of a certain plant and make a plan to actually plant a second cropping in some of your garden beds. Always put a bean plant in a corner in some other place. Few seeds of something that has a shorter growing period, like your lettuces or your radishes, because those will fit into small places. Also to be thinking of your companion planting. Now, I do know that basil and tomatoes love to go together because they taste great together too. But you can also be planting thyme in certain beds, your marigolds in certain beds, and if you don't have the space, put it in a pot beside it. I hope you learned something from this little adventure, and I hope you're encouraged to grow something yourself. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care. God bless.